Hey guys, today I'm going to do a lesson on blood types, and I hope by this point you've watched the other two videos, the one on what's component of blood, and then also the second one on the blood types. So let's start with the components of blood first. So the video mentioned red blood cells. These are the ones that carry oxygen. White blood cells, these are the ones that fight infection. We have platelets, which help your blood clot. So this is what makes scabs and stuff. And then the liquid part of your blood is called plasma. It almost looks like a bag of pee sitting there, but it's not. What it is they've taken all the cells out of the blood, and this is what you have left. So that's where your antibodies are carried, like whatever you had for breakfast that day, every shot you've ever gotten in your entire lifetime, all those stuff are in plasma. Okay, so let's actually look at blood types. The problems that we were doing before with the pea plants and all that were dominant or recessive. Blood types are one of those things in the body that are codominant, which if you remember, co means together. So there are two blood types that are actually both dominant. That would be A and a B. So if your mom had A and your dad had B blood, then more than likely you would end up with AB blood, which is a third type, and then the fourth one the video mentioned is type O. So the reason this is called codominant is because this one is dominant, this one is dominant. If you receive both of them, you have AB. So that's why they're called codominant. Another trait in your body that is codominant is skin color. Okay, so that's why there are so many different shades of skin, is because some are more dominant than others, and then they end up being codominant. Okay, so let's look at what determines your blood type. As it was mentioned in the video, the ones who give us blood types are our red blood cells. So there's this special protein on the outside of the cell membrane of the red blood cells. It's invisible, but it can be detected chemically. So if you were to go in and have your blood tested for what type it is, that's what they're looking for. Okay, so you can have an A protein on the outside of your blood cell. You could have a B protein. You could have both of those, or you could have no proteins and have type O. So that's where the four blood types come from. And then if you'll also remember, they mentioned positive and negative. That's an additional protein that you may or may not have. So for an example, my blood type is A positive. So that means I have the A protein on the outside of my red blood cells. But I also have that additional protein that they first found in the rhesus monkey. So if someone was A negative, that means they have the A protein, but not this additional protein. Okay, so A and B are the dominant ones. O is the only recessive one, and I want you to think of O as a 0. They have no proteins on the outside of their red blood cells. So that's where our four blood types come from. Okay, so here's kind of like a diagram of that. See how there's no proteins on the outside. These have both. This has B only. This has A only. Okay, so let's go over type A, which is the one that I said I have. You could get an A from both parents, or you can get an A from one parent and an O from the other. So this will show up as type A blood if someone were to type me. Okay, can't tell if it's this one or this one. But this is homozygous A, because they're the same. This is heterozygous A, because they're different. So I have no way of knowing which one of these that I have, okay? And neither do the other 40% of the population. So A is pretty popular. About 40% of the people in the world have type A blood. Okay, let's take a look at B. Same thing. You could be B homozygous, or you could be B heterozygous. Only 10% of the population has this blood type, so this one is a little bit rarer than A. Okay, type AB, obviously this is the easiest one to me. You have to have an A from one parent and a B from the other. So the only way to have AB blood is to be heterozygous. Now this one is kind of unique. It's called the universal recipient. Somebody who has type AB blood can receive blood from anybody else and it won't harm them. So me, for example, if I had type A blood and they gave me AB blood, it would kill me because the A blood cells in my body have B antibodies and they would fight them. So it would clot on the inside. And they kind of discovered that a long time ago, that the blood types can't mix together. Only 4% of the population has AB blood, so even though it is codominant, it is actually the rarest blood type there is. Okay, then the last one, which is the most common, 46% of people in the world have type O blood. The only way to get O is to receive an O allele from each parent. This one is considered the universal donor because it can be given to anybody. So if there was some accident on the road and the EMTs show up and the person is in desperate need of blood, they're not going to take the time to figure out what blood type they have. They're going to give them some O blood that they keep stocked on the ambulances. Then when they get them to the hospital and get them stable, they'll figure out their exact blood type and then start giving them that. But this is one of the reasons they ask for O blood all the time, is because it can be given to anybody. So if someone has O blood, it would be very beneficial for society for you to donate. Okay, so the only reason you really need to know your blood type, because it's important if you need blood. Okay, if they give you the wrong blood, it will clot and kill you, as we talked about earlier. All right, so just a super quick review here. Which cell helps you determine blood type? That's the red one, the 4 blood types, A, B, AB, and then O. Dominants are the A and B. The only recessive one is O. The universal donor is type O. And the universal recipient, I think these guys are sitting pretty because they can get any kind of blood. That's AB. And the genotype for heterozygous type A blood, remember they have to have an A, and then hetero means different. So we don't write a little a like we did with the other ones. You write an O. Okay, that's heterozygous A. All right, so let me show you how these kind of work. All you're going to do is put one letter above each box. Okay, and then I'll put the B's here. So all of these, if you bring this one down and this one over, 100% of these offspring are going to have type AB blood. And that makes sense. If the mom gives an A and the dad gives a B, it doesn't matter if there's 22 children, they're all going to have AB blood. Okay, so let's try this one. This one looks a little tricky because you only have one allele there, but remember to have type O, the only way to get that is 2 O's. So it's interesting because these top two end up being AO and the bottom two end up being BO. So 50% of your offspring will have type A blood and 50% will have type B. Because remember that O is recessive. It's like it's not even there. So if you ignore the O, this would be A, this would be B. And keep in mind, that's not like either parent. So that's interesting. If these kids needed an organ or blood from their parents, they couldn't give it to them. Okay, so the last one, let's cross two AB parents. Okay, this one would be AA. This one would be AB. AB. And then this last one here is BB. So you'll end up 25% A, 25% B, 50% AB, just like the parents, which is kind of what you would expect. Okay, so let's look at some sample problems here. They're a little bit more difficult than just saying cross this times this. So a woman has type O. We know hers is going to be double O. Okay, and it says the man has type A, so I can go ahead and write an A. But here's the most important word up here. He's heterozygous for that. So if you remember, hetero means different. So I need to write an AO. So what happens on the top two, you end up with AO, and then the bottom two end up being OO. So what are the possible genotypes and phenotypes of their children? 50% of their kids will have type A blood. 50% of their kids will have type O blood. So theoretically, if they had two children, one would have A, one would have O. Now remember, that's just a probability. They could have all the kids having O or all having A. It's just in terms of probability every time the sperm and egg unite. Okay, so let's do this one to show you how it can vary. A man has blood type O. Okay, well if the man has O, then I know I'm going to go ahead and write O's. All right, now his wife has B. Okay, so this one's a little trickier because it doesn't say what kind of B. So the two options for her, she could be homozygous B or she could be heterozygous B. So that's why I've given two Punnett squares here. So let's do homozygous here and we'll do heterozygous here. So all of these, the only option they can be is a B from mom and an O from dad. They will all have type B, just like their mother. Okay? Down here, however, these two will have type B, but these two will have type O. Okay? But that's not the question. It says what blood types are not possible for their children. Well, if you guys can just look, there's no A around anywhere, right? So the kids cannot have A blood, and they cannot have AB blood. Okay? So I'm going to let y'all practice some of these. I tried to keep these as short as possible. You should have 2 things attached to this lesson. One is a PDF that I've uploaded for you that has pictures of the blood types up there for you to practice. And then the other one is like a Google form that once you submit it, it'll send it to me, and then I can grade it for you to let you know how you're doing. So give those a try, and remember, you can email me anytime you want. Have a good day.